There are places in this world that do not belong to the living, places that wait silently for the desperate, the curious, and the foolish. The Smith family thought they had received a miracle when a strange caller offered them a free house in Lagos. No payment, no conditions, no questions asked. But some gifts are not blessings. Some doors should never be opened, and some houses are already occupied. This is the story of the house that was never meant to exist.
It all began on an ordinary afternoon, the kind where the sun in Lagos sat lazily in the sky, and the air hummed with distant traffic and restless life, when Mr. Smith received a call from an unknown number that flickered briefly before settling on his screen, as though it had always belonged there. He hesitated for only a second before answering, unaware that this simple decision would carve a permanent scar across his family's destiny. And on the other end came a voice, smooth, calm, and strangely hollow, asking, "Hello, is this the Smith family?" The man replied cautiously, glancing at his wife, Mrs. Smith, whose curiosity had already begun to bloom. The voice continued without waiting, announcing that they had won a fully furnished house in Lagos, free of charge, with no conditions, no payment, no explanation, only a precise location and a polite instruction to search for it online and confirm its beauty for themselves. Mrs. Smith laughed at first, thinking it was a prank or perhaps a cruel trick designed to mock their modest lifestyle. But curiosity proved stronger than caution, and together they searched the location on their phone, watching as images of a stunning house appeared before their eyes. White walls gleaming like polished ivory, a red rooftop glowing under the sun, tall windows reflecting a peaceful sky, and a compound so wide it seemed to whisper promises of comfort and luxury. The children gathered around as excitement spread through the room like wildfire. Their eldest son, Daniel, stared in disbelief, while Angel, the middle daughter with a flair for fashion, began imagining how she would decorate her room, and the youngest, Ella, clapped with innocent joy, her laughter echoing in a way that would soon feel like a memory from another lifetime. They did not question the source of such generosity, nor did they pray or seek guidance, nor did they pause to wonder why something so perfect had come so easily into their hands. And in their excitement, they made arrangements to move immediately, convincing themselves that this was their miracle, their breakthrough, their long-awaited blessing. And so the Smith family packed their belongings, unaware that they were not moving into a home, but into a waiting silence that had been expecting them. The journey to their new home began with laughter and music, their car filled with the hopeful chatter of a family stepping into what they believed was a better life. Yet as they drove further from the familiar bustle of Lagos, the roads began to change, narrowing into lonely paths that twisted through quiet stretches of land where even the wind seemed reluctant to pass. Mr. Smith noticed it first, how the busy roads gave way to emptiness, how the usual signs of life, markets, shops, children playing, slowly vanished, replaced by long shadows cast by trees that leaned too closely over the road, as though watching their arrival with silent curiosity. It took them nearly 20 minutes from the main road to reach the house. The Smith family arrived at the house under the burning afternoon sun, their car heavy with luggage and hope for a fresh start. Mr. Smith, a disciplined man with a quiet authority, stepped out first, surveying the compound with a satisfied nod. The house stood tall and modern, freshly painted, its sharp edges glowing under sunlight as if it had something to prove. Mrs. Smith followed, already imagining curtains, furniture placement, and peaceful evenings. The children, full of energy, rushed inside without hesitation, their laughter filling the empty halls like they were claiming it as their own. Each child quickly chose their rooms, but Angela, the middle child, claimed the largest one with pride. She spun around in excitement, already planning decorations, colors, and designs that would make the room feel like a palace. Ella, the youngest, took a smaller room but stayed close to Angela, while the eldest son, Daniel, dragged his gaming setup into his own space with little concern for anything else. The house felt alive, not in a sinister way yet, but in the way new spaces absorb the energy of their occupants. For 2 weeks, everything was perfect. They adjusted to their routines, laughter echoed through the corridors, and nothing seemed out of place. The nights were quiet, the days busy, and the house gave no sign of the history buried beneath its foundation. It watched silently, as though waiting for the right moment to reveal what it truly was. It was late at night, Daniel lost in his world of music and video games, his headphones blasting music while his fingers moved rapidly across his controller. The glow of the screen reflected in his eyes as he leaned forward, completely immersed in his game. Then suddenly, the sound was faint, but clear enough to make him pause. He pulled off his headphones slowly, tilting his head as he listened. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. He shrugged it off and reached for his headphones again when the knock came once more, louder this time. Annoyed, he stood up and walked toward the door, dragging his feet lazily. "Who's there?" he muttered, already expecting one of his siblings. But when he opened the door, the hallway was empty. No movement, no sound, just the dim light flickering faintly. As he turned back into his room and shut the door, something cold and violent wrapped around his neck. A hand, tight, inhuman, clamped over his mouth. Daniel struggled, his eyes wide with terror as he tried to scream, but no sound escaped. His body weakened, his vision blurring, until suddenly his mother burst into the room, her face filled with concern. The grip vanished instantly. He collapsed to the floor, gasping, crawling backward in fear, unsure if what he had felt was real or something worse. She asked why he had been shouting, but her voice sounded distant to him, as though it came from somewhere far away, and he could not immediately respond, his body trembling, his throat dry from the struggle he had just endured. When he finally managed to speak, he tried to explain what had happened, that something had grabbed him, that it had tried to choke him. But even as the words left his mouth, they sounded weak, unbelievable, like fragments of a nightmare rather than reality. Mrs. Smith frowned, placing her hands on her hips as she shook her head slowly, dismissing his fear with a tired sigh and telling him that he stayed up too late playing games and that his mind was beginning to deceive him. And with that, she left his room, leaving him alone with a fear that refused to leave. The next morning, Daniel sat at the dining table, his face pale as he explained what had happened. His siblings laughed almost immediately, turning his fear into a joke. Angela rolled her eyes while Ella giggled nervously, unsure whether to believe him or not. Their parents were less amused, but not in the way Daniel hoped. They scolded him instead. "You stay up too late," Mr. Smith said firmly. "That's what happens when you fill your head with nonsense." Mrs. Smith added a warning about seizing his gaming equipment if he didn't adjust his habits. Daniel sat in silence, frustration building inside him. He knew what he felt. That wasn't imagination, it was real. As the family left for their day, the house fell quiet again. But the silence now felt heavier, as though something had been awakened, something that had tasted fear and wanted more. Later that day, Mrs. Smith sat alone in the sitting room watching television, enjoying the silence, until she heard the front door creak open slowly. Her body stiffened immediately. She checked the time, realizing it was still too early for the children to be back. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady but strained. And when no answer came, the television suddenly began to play eerie music, its tone shifting from normal to something unsettling, causing her to turn quickly toward it in confusion and fear. Before she could make sense of what was happening, another knock echoed through the house, louder this time, more deliberate, and with growing unease, she stood up and walked toward the door, calling out again. "I said, who's there?" And this time, a voice responded softly, almost too softly. "It's me, Anne, your neighbor." And with a sigh of relief that masked her lingering fear, Mrs. Smith opened the door to find a woman standing there, smiling warmly, her presence calm yet strangely unsettling. Anne stepped into the house with ease, her movements smooth and confident, as though she had been there many times before, and she introduced herself as the neighbor who lived next door, claiming she had come simply to welcome Mrs. Smith and keep her company since she noticed she was often alone at home. Mrs. Smith, eager for companionship in the quiet isolation of their new environment, welcomed her warmly, and the two women quickly fell into easy conversation, laughing and sharing stories as though they had known each other for years, while the strange feeling that lingered in the air quietly settled deeper into the walls around them. When it was time for Anne to leave, Mrs. Smith offered to walk her to the door, but just as they reached it, a knock sounded, and when Mrs. Smith opened it, Angela and Ella stood there, returning from school with their usual energy, and with a bright smile she said, "You're back. Meet our neighbor, Anne." Anne bent down to greet the children playfully, her smile widening in a way that seemed almost unnatural, but before she could finish, Anne screamed in terror, her small body recoiling as she covered her eyes, shouting that Anne looked like a monster, her voice filled with a fear so raw and real that it froze the moment in place. Anne stood up immediately, her expression shifting ever so slightly, though she quickly masked it with a polite smile, while Mrs. Smith rushed to apologize, embarrassed by her daughter's outburst, explaining that Angel did not handle strangers well. But Angel insisted through tears that she had not seen a human at all, only something monstrous, something terrifying that stood where Anne was supposed to be. Mrs. Smith, angered and ashamed, dragged Angel aside and scolded her harshly, even slapping her to silence her words, warning her never to speak of anyone that way again, especially their neighbor, while Anne quietly excused herself and left, her smile lingering just a little too long before disappearing into the distance. That night, as the house settled into an uneasy silence, the memory of Angel's scream lingered in the air like a warning no one wanted to acknowledge. And though Mrs. Smith tried to dismiss it as childish imagination, a small part of her mind began to wonder what exactly her daughter had seen, and whether perhaps children, in their innocence, sometimes saw things that adults had long forgotten how to perceive. The night air grew thick and heavy, pressing against the walls of the house as though trying to seep inside, and Ella, unable to sleep due to the heat, awoke quietly and made her way to the bathroom, her footsteps soft against the floor as she turned on the shower, expecting the cool comfort of water to wash away her restlessness. But the moment she stepped under the stream, something felt wrong. The texture of the liquid against her skin thicker than it should have been, its scent metallic and sharp. And with growing confusion, she looked down at her feet, only to freeze in horror as she saw blood, dark, thick blood pooling around her, dripping from above, covering her body as though the shower itself had turned into something alive and cruel. Her scream echoed through the house, sharp and piercing, but just as suddenly as it had begun, the blood vanished, replaced by clear water that flowed as though nothing had happened, leaving Ella trembling, her mind struggling to grasp what she had just witnessed. She stepped out slowly, her heart racing, convincing herself it had been a hallucination, a trick of her tired mind, and after some time she returned to her bed, pulling the covers tightly around her as she forced her eyes shut, desperate for sleep to come. But sleep brought no comfort, for in the middle of the night she felt something brushing against her face, a soft, deliberate touch that sent a chill through her entire body. And when she opened her eyes, she saw Anne standing outside her window, motionless, her face eerily calm as she stared inside. Ella sat up slowly, her voice trembling as she called out, "Anne," but the woman did not move, did not blink, did not respond. And as the silence stretched between them, it became clear that whatever stood outside that window was not there as a neighbor, but as something else entirely. If you think the Smith family should have left immediately, wait until you see what happened next.